Hi guys, I'm Nikita from I Am Resilient. I wanted to share about why I started I Am Resilient. So we all know that resilience is bouncing back, being strong, getting back up when we fall down. And it can be used in different instances, like if we need to take a break from work, we regenerate ourselves and we bounce back and we come back with more strength and stamina and grit. But resilience is really a holistic way of looking at how we live our lives. Are we resilient people in all areas of our lives, or is it more challenging for us? And resilience really begins pre-birth, but at birth with the mother-baby connection, or the parent-baby connection. Of course, it can predate birth, looking at how the mother of that mother had a relationship with their parents. But if you're just looking at the mother-baby connection, are their needs met? Are they taught to regulate emotionally and psychologically? And then if there are childhood traumas or instances that get ingrained during the development of the infant's brain that tells the infant that no, I need to do these other things to be safe, or I am not safe, or I am being neglected, then there are issues that form in the personality that that child will then develop. And that will play out in relationships and in patterns later on. And of course, the severity can be small or it can be big, and it can be dependent on other factors that happen in the life of that child and adult. So as the child grows up, there are opportunities that are presented to learn resilience and learn to be safe and cared for and to trust. This all gets ingrained in the brain and affects the nervous system. And the nervous system determines how we respond to our environment or react to our environment. And that will influence our life. So all of these things are very, very important and complex, and there's not one answer about gaining or strengthening resilience. If we have a tendency to get more stressed or become more affected by the things around us, such as an anxiety when we enter this hyper alert state when there's an external circumstance we view as threatening, we may need to do more resilient practices in order to gain that resilience and be strong and persevere and have the confidence to go through life and be successful humans fulfilling our purpose. And of course, if we were nurtured and there were no traumas and we had the most loving, nurturing experiences only, then maybe we don't need as many of these practices because that innate resilience is always showing. However, trauma later on in life or crisis can bring you into a state where you do need those practices. So regardless, it's important for us to take care of ourselves, especially if we've had alternative experiences as children or as adults that have really eaten away at our coping mechanisms or our ability to deal with challenge successfully without being thrown completely off. So back to my story, I have a few stories about why I chose to start this resilience movement. The first one is, I will save the other one for another time, but the first one is a time as a student, and afterwards I had some experience working on a medical surgical floor in a hospital, caring for patients who had suffered from significant brain trauma or had had brain or spinal surgery. And if somebody has a stroke, you hear sometimes they become paralyzed, or if they have a brain injury, sometimes parts of their body or memory or speech don't work. And so it was a very interesting place to learn about the brain, because if somebody had an injury in a part of their brain, that part may be impaired, but everything else might work. So you can really pinpoint where things are based on what is happening. So assessment became very important. And I love assessment and I love observing people. And over time, I got to understand that some of these patients who originally arrived to the place that I was working debilitated and unable to speak, unable to move, sometimes paralyzed, sometimes actually unable to breathe on their own, ended up recovering very, very quickly. And they worked with speech language pathology, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, and it was like one day I would arrive there and I would be, feeding them or walking them to the bathroom, or maybe they weren't even able to go to the bathroom. And it seemed like sometimes the next day I would arrive and they would be walking around and speaking on the phone and remembering who they were speaking to. And it was just, I was so in awe of the resilience that these people had. It was so mystical and magical and beautiful that these people could just bounce right back. And then other people would be there for months, years, with no change at all. And I would often ask the people that I was working with, how do we know if somebody will bounce back? And although sometimes you can predict based on the level of injury or the tissues affected, a lot of the time, nobody knows. And so I got very interested in neuroscience and neuroplasticity and the ways the brain heals and changes and grows, and how it can actually go from a state of complete inability to speak or inability to move to recovery. I have many more stories I would like to share, but I will save them for another time. So yeah, I got really interested in learning about neuroscience and really what promotes neuroplasticity and what promotes us to heal from these circumstances as well as other stresses in our lives. So here it is, and I hope you follow this journey because I'm very excited to share it with you.